Okay, can y'all hear me good? All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Appreciate that it's a Friday and we, want to be as respectful of everybody's time as possible. Just so everybody knows, I hope it was adequately advertised, but this meeting is going to be addressing specifically short-term vehicle rentals. When this committee was formed, it was primarily to look at short-term vacation rentals, but in looking at the legislation, it didn't really specify that. So with this sector starting to develop and grow as well, I thought it would be prudent for this committee, seeing as it's already been formed, to take it up and to start to look at it as well. So appreciate everybody being here. Appreciate the members taking the time to be here. And there is a sign-up sheet. If anybody's here who is not signed up, please do. And I guess everybody's signed up. So Brian, if you'll bring it over here. Okay, thank you. First up, we have Enterprise, Alamo, and National. So if you'll come up to the mics and please introduce yourself. And yep, right there is perfect. And who you're with.
How you doing today?
Good.
My name is Scott Ennis, E-N-N-I-S. I am the controller for Enterprise Leasing Company of Georgia, based here in Atlanta. Been with Enterprise for 24 years, but I'm new to the state. Only been here 2 months. So previously I was in Iowa, Illinois, Nebraska, and South Dakota before I came here. My role with Enterprise is controller, our finances for the company. One of my main responsibilities is ensuring that we, part of our rental process is to collect the proper fees, funds, and then make sure they get allocated back to the proper, municipality, city, whatever it may be for sales tax, excise tax, any kind of fees that we do collect in our rentals of our vehicles. And this issue, we just want to come in today and talk about a little bit and make sure that, we're all on the same playing field when it comes to renting vehicles. And there shouldn't be, somebody doesn't have to collect certain fees that we do. We're here, we support new technology in our industry. Our company is a leader in technology with the rental car providing services, but the requirements that we have to operate are pretty stringent, and we want to make sure that it's a level playing field for everybody. So that's all I had.
All right. Do we have any questions? All right. Thank you very much. Dan Miller, did you want to speak as well?
Yeah, again, Dan Miller, I'm the Vice President, General Manager here at Enterprise, and we've got about 150 locations here in the metropolitan area from Noonan, Peachtree City up to Blue Ridge, and about 40,000 vehicles in the city. Again, just want to reiterate, he said we want a level playing field, and some of the peer-to-peer companies out there that advertise your pickup at the airport, they avoid paying the taxes and fees at the airports and all the other stuff. It just puts us at a competitive disadvantage, which will make sure from a safety standpoint, recalls, they're not renting cars that have recalls or safety issues, and that they're paying the proper taxes and fees. That's really about it.
And just so we know, specifically, what are those taxes that you're
Well, like if you
referencing,
go to
and
the
what?
airport-
Yeah, and how much are they? and
Sure.
that kind of
So
stuff.
if you go to the airport and rent a car, there's a 10% tax that goes back to the airport. There's also a $5 a day CFC charge, they call it, that helps run the rental car facility. And it's a $500 million facility that you borrowed bonds, and the tax revenue covers that to help pay for that. And if the Turos and Ubers and Lyfts continue to come in, that's less revenue that you guys get to pay off those bonds and run the car rental center.
Okay. Now, how would this? You brought in Uber and Lyft. How would that, and how does that impact the fees?
Well,
Because they wouldn't be paying.
peer-to-peer. That's a
Yeah.
similar type situation. But
Okay.
if you just bring in, say, the Turos and things like that,
Yeah.
they advertise that I'll come to the airport, pick you up. You can rent a car for $30 or $50 a day, and then they're not paying any airport taxes or fees or the CFC charge or anything. They just,
Okay.
so they're
Yeah.
avoiding paying all those taxes and fees.
Okay. All right.
And from a recall standpoint, if there's safety issues with recalls and tires and brakes and all the things that we have to do to make sure that the cars are safe. They're not having to regulate that.
Any other
That's
questions? All right, thank
Okay,
you,
thank
thank you, sir. Next, I'm gonna go a little bit out of order because I do want the members to kind of get an idea of what we're looking at here. Dusty Brighton, Toro, we'd love to hear from you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Dusty Brighton, and I represent Turo. Turo is a peer-to-peer car-sharing platform, and the company is headquartered in San Francisco, California. We offer a marketplace where car owners can list their cars and connect with travelers who may want to enjoy the benefits of using a vehicle on their vacations or for other reasons, such as maybe you need a car for a day to move your child into college or something like that. So about half our customers report that they share their car just to cover their payment and the expense of owning a car. Others want to earn a little extra money to reduce their debt or save for the future. They can subsidize their car payment by renting out an asset that at times is not being used. Turo currently is available in 5,500 cities and 49 states. We have over 7 million people using the marketplace at this point. We're happy to say that in the state of Georgia, we have over 7,700 hosts at this point that use the platform. We're grateful to the committee for taking this up, and we look forward to working with you all. Our position is that we do not fall under the definition of a rental car company, nor do we want to be a rental car company. So again, we're more than welcome to work with the committee on what a proper structure might look like as far as regulatory, et cetera. And I do want to mention, as far as leveling the playing field, you know, a lot of rental car companies, and well, they enjoy a tax break. They don't have to pay sales tax when they purchase cars. Everybody who lists on Turo obviously is expected to pay the sales taxes and the registration fees. So again, I think in a lot of ways we are comparing apples to oranges when it comes to the types of breaks that rental car companies versus a peer-to-peer marketplace would share. But again, willing to work with the committee and look forward to discussing this further in the future.
Thank you for being here. I just wanted to learn a little bit about your company. Like, how old is Toro? How much has it grown from the, from say 3 years ago? Like, how is that trending?
Yeah, sure. It actually started in 2010 by a gentleman named Andre Haddad, who obviously is running the company out of San Francisco. Back then, the name of the company was Relay Rides. And then it turned into, they changed the name to Turo just a couple of years ago. The growth has been positive. We still consider ourselves a startup. Again, we're over 7 million users, as I stated earlier, and in 5,500 cities, 49 countries. So it is growing. There is a demand for this. And again, I think it's about a consumer being able to use an asset that a lot of times would just sit in the garage. And maybe if they're able to gain a little bit of additional revenue from that, they will.
And do you have a figure on about how many partners you have, like in the state of Georgia? Like how many people list their vehicle on your platform?
Again, I think it's right now we're sitting right now at around 7,700.
7,700. And
that's hosts. Those are people that are listing vehicles.
how does this is probably a naive question, but how does the insurance work? If I were to go, I go and I rent a vehicle on your platform. Do I have to purchase additional insurance? Is that even offered, or is it just whatever I carry on my own personal, or is it the vehicles? How does that work?
Yeah, when you obviously choose a vehicle on our platform and you decide to use it, we provide insurance through Liberty Mutual insurance, and we'll provide what the state minimum is. Now, the customer, if they decide they want to purchase additional insurance, they can, but we do provide it through Liberty Mutual.
Okay. I have a question from Representative Drenner.
Actually, Chairman Dollar was asked what I was going to also ask was the insurance question. I'm curious in when the market fails. So just bear with me for a second.
Sure.
So when the market fails and we step in to regulate. The rental car companies allow their consumers to buy additional insurance, right? When they do that, it creates something called moral hazard. That means personally that people will treat their rental cars a lot different than they would treat their own cars, right? So you might wreck them more because you have doubly insured them. My question with that thought in mind is, do you keep the data on how many wrecks you've had with these types of vehicles?
I would be willing to bet that we are benchmarking that. However, I'd have to get back with you and confirm if, what the data looks like and what they're actually keeping there. But glad to get back with you on that.
Okay. That's all the questions we have. Did you have another? Okay. But as we go through this, I might, or somebody else on the committee might have another question for you. I appreciate you being here, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. Next, Ashley Groom.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Ashley Groom. I'm here on behalf of McGuire Woods Consulting. We represent Hertz Rental Cars. Would like to echo the folks who spoke earlier from Enterprise, and then also just make a couple of additional statements. We started looking at this issue kind of towards the end of session last year, and one of the first questions was obviously trying to figure out why Turo wasn't considered a rental car. And what it appears to be in the code section right now, Georgia defines a rental car as being a legal entity which owns or leases 5 or more rental cars. And so we think that definition is probably a good starting point as to some changes that need to be made to make sure that these folks are captured in the same way that we would want to capture the rental car and make sure there's parity amongst the companies. And I know one of the first speakers mentioned the safety aspect, but another thing to consider that other states have passed laws on the same topic. There's actually federal law that requires rental cars, if there's an open a recall on a vehicle, that has to be removed from the fleet. And so that wouldn't apply if there are these cars that are being rented by Turo that have open recalls or other safety concerns. Because they're not considered rental cars here, I don't know that they're complying with that. So that's something you might want to consider. And I know Illinois just recently passed a law dealing with this issue, as well as Maryland, so we can get you copies of those if it would be helpful moving forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Well, any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Megan Middleton. And then after Megan, we have Michael McPherson, and that is all the speakers I see on the list. So if anyone else would like to speak, please let me know.
Good afternoon. I'm Megan Middleton. I represent the City of Atlanta, and I'm here to discuss the issue as it applies to our airport. Of course, the airport being the busiest place for rental cars in the state, we also have a lot of Turo and possibly other companies like this using the airport and using our parking lots and our curbside for running this business. So a couple months ago, I even logged on with Turo, put in some dates I was going to travel to Atlanta, and over 200 cars showed up that I could pick up at the airport. So these are cars that are being picked up, they're being rented, they're using airport parking lots, which are used for travelers and those picking up travelers. They're using the curbside pickups, and that's where they're handling their business. But they don't have a permit, they don't have a concessions contract or a concessionaire lease. But all of the companies that are represented behind me do have those, and they are paying into, you know, they gather all the fees, any taxes that are then passed along to, like some of the fees that we have go to pay for what was Phillips Arena, now State Farm Arena, to pay off the bonds on that arena. And those, fee has actually been extended as of last year. So we're losing out on those fees being paid. It's, you know, it's a parity issue, but also, like I said, we cannot regulate them because, as Mrs. Groom said, that the state law, the definition of being 5 cars or more is a rental car company. Well, if you're a one-on-one, if I'm just, you know, renting my car, I don't fall under the definition of state law, of rental car in the state law. So we do look forward to working with you all. We would like a change in state law so that we can change that definition, and then we can work with regulating them. This is not a comment on that industry and how it runs, except for in the parity with the other car companies and how it works with our airport and our property at the airport.
Okay. Representative Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have y'all seen a marked decline in those fees you've collected since this has come in?
That is one thing that we're doing a search on right now. It's just kind of harder to find out, you know, get the data from Turo. So that is something that we're looking into to see if we can get at least a good estimate.
Now I'm curious as to you collect fees from the car companies already, right? That's been going on since they've been around. So since Turo has come into the picture, have y'all seen a reduction in those fees you're collecting from the car companies? Or are you not collecting based on the vehicles?
Yeah, that's I'm not sure I can answer that one, but I will.
You see
find
what I'm
that out for
saying?
you.
Like,
Yeah.
are you really
Yeah.
losing money, or is this sort of a preemptive situation we're talking about?
We believe we're losing money, but like I said, I don't have the amount for you. But I think it may be a little both. As people learn more about
Right.
the option of using this type of company, preemptive on that end.
Thank you.
And there are also some safety issues as far as being able to regulate them, as we're able to do with the car companies that already have, you know, the licenses to be out there.
And how much are those fees?
That I don't know, but I can follow up. I'm not sure if anybody behind me can answer, but I can
Okay.
follow up on get you a line item.
And I'd also be curious as to, like, some ideas on how this would be enforced or how other authorities are monitoring or enforcing this. Because I have some friends that rent their vehicles on Turo, and you know, they just go and leave it in the lot and leave the key, you know, under the seat or on the tire, and it's like, okay, it's level 4 space, you know, 204, and I don't know how you stop that. So I'd be curious to see, like, what has been discussed.
Yeah.
They're paying to park there, but I think that the issue that's being taken up here is that the car rental companies are paying, you know, a higher premium to be to operate a business there at the airport or offsite the airport. Okay.
And that's something we'd look into. Also, we did send a cease and desist letter to them in May, and they replied that they are not a rental car company. But once again, that was our first mode of defense on this and trying to get something under control on this.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Thank you,
Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Michael McPherson with the Georgia Municipal Association, and appreciate y'all looking into this issue. One of the things where we cross over in the code is our definition of vehicle and vehicles and automobiles. We've got things out there on the roadways that aren't defined. E-scooters being one of them, and so I know we're talking about maybe automobiles specifically being being rented. I wanted to bring up the fact that we have a working group in place right now to study the e-scooter issue, which y'all are probably well aware of. We got them on the Capitol grounds, where 12 different cities have got officials talking, trying to come up with an action plan for legislative items in the 2019 session that we'll bring forward as kind of a starting point so that we can ensure that these things are the commercial activity is legal and that we can move forward because they're highly popular. And
Blinkton, there's 1,000 of them everywhere.
there's so the numbers. I don't have total numbers on all of them that are in this city, but in our conversations, Bird apparently has 1,500 on the streets of Atlanta, and I don't know how many Lime or any of the other groups have. In conversations, I understand that the University of Georgia has confiscated almost 1,000 of them, and so these things are being put into the right-of-way after they've received cease and desist letters, and they just continue to pop up. And so we want to ensure, because they're so popular, we want to ensure that the legality is approached in the code and that all the considerations are made. There's so many questions out there. The discussions were very, very in-depth in the 2 meetings that we had so far. So I just wanted you to be aware that we're looking at that, and it should fall within that discussion of vehicles, even though we may not consider it, the same, in terms of
I don't
the
know
market.
that we want to open that can of worms here. I think that would be an issue very well suited for the Motor Vehicles Committee. This
Right.
is more the short-term.
Yeah. So
For those of you that were still around, we ran into a similar issue about 15, maybe 18 years ago with the Segways, and they were telling us that in 5 years nobody would be walking. We'd all be just taking Segways everywhere, and we were trying to figure out how we classified those, and were they allowed on sidewalks, were they in bike lanes, and looking at something similar to the the
Exactly.
scooters. And I think that where we settled on it is that you could be on a sidewalk on a Segway, but you had to have a helmet. So there you go.
There's a discrete definition in the code that allows
I
for
think-
the use of the Segways, and we feel that it'd probably be a good starting point to come up with something like that for these other alternative transportation modes.
But you don't have to jump over 5 Segways to get across the sidewalk. I mean,
No, you don't.
I mean, these birds, they're just everywhere. Yeah.
Right. So with the Turo and the hire car web platforms, we see this as one of those e-sharing technologies that is really emerging. Some of these things come online and the popularity is just there, like the scooters. But with these, I think the popularity may be growing, but it's not quite as explosive. And so as the e-sharing technology becomes more and more popular, that's where we see the disturbances in each industry and the issues pop up in terms of municipal government across our state. And so we want you to know that we would like to be part of this discussion. I think City of Atlanta is kind of the first city that has something to say about it at this point. We haven't heard from any of our members yet, but one of the things that I think we should be conscious of is it may be person to person that we're talking about, but Zipcar is a technology that's been around and a company that's been around for a while. As far as I understand it, that company came forward and worked with the marketplaces and the cities that they wanted to be in to find parking places to put their product on the market in a reasonable way so that folks could access them and use them and be a partner with the transportation community at hand. So that's the sort of thing where we kind of scratch our head when we see these types of businesses throw product at the market and seemingly not really care what happens to their product if we consider Athens and the University of Georgia. But we've got, like I said, the 12 cities are working, and we'll have something for y'all hopefully by January.
Down in Savannah, I saw them all over Savannah as well.
Savannah is one of the cities that are in the working group, and they have a moratorium right now in place, but they're trying to work toward something that's viable, so where they can actually have them out there on the street and figure out what works for Savannah, because these things I've heard said that they're built to ride in the street, but the streets aren't built for them to ride on. And in Savannah, you've got cobblestone streets and all kinds of other issues that they have to deal with specifically there. that
You could
have
not
to be
ride one
considered.
on. I've tried one, and I would not take it on a cobblestone.
Right. I probably wouldn't
I
want to
probably
either.
wouldn't take it on a sidewalk or a street again either. All right.
So the City of Atlanta is considering something as well right now in terms of an ordinance, but just wanted to make you aware. Thank you for your time. Cities of the state applaud your efforts.
All right. We got a question for you. Not just
Okay.
yet, Michael. Yeah.
I'll pass this down.
Okay. Thank you. You're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I am personally disappointed at the "get off my lawn" attitude towards these alternative forms of transportation from UGA and our Athens mayor and commissioners. Can you articulate a specific issue that these things have caused that is creating this upsettedness about it?
So I can't speak for the University of Georgia and their actions, but as far as I understand, the regulations in place, they feel like they are following the Board of Regents regulations in terms of what they're doing, and I think Mr. Carr or somebody from the Regents can speak to their issue. Athens is currently working with the stakeholders to come up with a viable, ordinance that will allow for folks to use them legally. But they run into definition issues, at the state level, and we're going to need help there. Just if we're going to come up with a model ordinance that everybody can use, we'll definitely need some specifics added to the code, I believe.
I got another one. Like, really, let me rephrase that. What is the problem that we're trying to solve here? Are people dying because of these scooters?
I have only heard of one death in our state, and I do not have any specifics on it. It's just hearsay. As
So a
far
hearsay
as I
injury.
understand,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm just curious as to why
Yeah.
it's such a big deal, really, because
Well, Mr. Chairman just said near death, and there's a video.
well, okay.
There's a video on online on YouTube that was created from footage from the University of Georgia buses.
right, that you
And-
can
and-
almost see people getting hit and
They're
all that
just
stuff.
weaving in and out of
Yeah.
traffic,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so moving violations are apparent and real and documented in that video. And so that's what the cities need to put in place in order to give the company something that they can hand to the client and give a rational framework for operations that makes sense, so that the quality of life and safety, public safety, are addressed.
I mean, you could do the same thing on a bicycle.
Bicycle is addressed in the code very, very specifically.
So if we added scooters to a bicycle code, that would be kind of where we're looking at. I mean, as far as like how to operate a scooter legally on a road, is that what we're looking for? Or are we
It's-
trying to regulate a business because they didn't ask for permission to put scooters in the cities?
Well, I think you, since they're operating as a commercial, through a commercial means, yes, both, very much so. Especially if it, as disruptive as it can be. When you're talking about having them on the sidewalk, if they're not correctly placed, then folks
I know,
on
I know.
folks on wheelchairs and
I know, I
folks
saw the
that
picture of the
need help
lady-
getting by.
I know, saw the picture of the lady in a wheelchair and one of these scooters laying across the road, and my first thought was, well, the cameraman could have moved it.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like we're like spending a lot of time on something that's new, and rather than we jump in and regulate everything all at once, we ought to just sit back and say, yeah, this is pretty cool. Let's see what unfolds.
We are doing both. We are saying yes, the
And I'm gonna have my-
popularity is
yeah.
there, but the liability issues are real. And if we were to sit back and say, hey, go ahead, who's responsible for when someone gets hurt? It's going to come back to the person that said, hey, go ahead. And that's what we hear right now from our cities that are concerned that there isn't enough in the Georgia code to point to for their own ordinances. So
Thank you, Michael.
appreciate
you.
it.
Guess I have to jump on Representative Fry's bandwagon as well. You mentioned Zipcar, and you said the Zipcar went into cities and, you know, formed like a partnership agreement. Could it not be that this industry is so young and so developing that maybe they don't know what they don't know about coming in and talking to cities about some of these issues?
We're all existing in the same space when it comes to watching these technologies evolve and mature. And so we heard testimony that Turo, one of the platforms, has been around since 2010, even though it started out under a different name. I mean, I don't know how long they've been in Georgia, but the issues, certainly follow these businesses.
Well, let me just ask one, Mr. Chairman, can I ask one follow-up question? Are you saying that that we need to get involved because the cities do not have a state statute in order to regulate what's going on in their city? Is that what you're saying?
Saying that the definitions in the Georgia Code do not contemplate e-sharing platforms as well as they should, down to the specific item or product being offered. And so whether it's the commercial rental of a person's property or the rental of a scooter that they're dumping on the street, those things aren't addressed in the code as well as they could be, in our opinion. And we ask, going into the next legislative session that we explore that topic and have a good discussion and come up with something that works for the state.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Well, we've gotten that on the record, and the conversation has started. It's an interesting point, and it is something that has literally popped up since we were in session, quite literally. Well, that is all the questions and all the speakers. And if there's no more comment, we'll go ahead and adjourn. This committee has one more meeting. It's gonna, I think the time is still somewhat fluid, but it's going to be during biennial, so we'll be in Athens. So yeah, it'll be Sunday. Probably start sometime around noon, I think. And barring any other changes, I think that'll be our only other meeting for this committee. So I want to thank everybody for being here. It's Friday. Go home. Thanks. Bye.